Welcome to the Missouri Baptist Football Coaches Show. I'm Harry Schrader. Head coach Jason Buryanek is here and getting ready for the first home game of the year, and that's got to be exciting. I want to ask you a little bit, though, about the home field, meaning you're playing at home. That's a big deal, but let's also talk about the home field you guys are still developing for future seasons.
Obviously, the great facility that we've been talking about, we're still doing a fundraising campaign, trying to get the stands completed. I know Brad, our SID, and Tom have been doing some work on some scoreboard stuff already, and that some of those plans are in the works. You know, I don't think finalized, but I think they're definitely in the works. And I talked to Dr. Lacey probably a month ago or so, and talked to him about lights. And the way I understand it is, I do believe we have approval for lights. So there's some things, some pieces starting to come together, but it's not 100% done yet.
Pretty exciting. Also exciting, your first home game of the year. That's got to be good to be able to just come home and you get a couple in a row.
Yeah, we have 3 in a row. I don't know how I feel about that, but it is the way it is. And but yeah, obviously to get a chance to perform in front of the home crowd and get back on our home field is going to be really nice. And especially having a bye week, you know, to get back in game mode and you know, having a couple of those that we don't have to travel is going to be really nice.
You guys have St. Xavier this weekend, and they're really good. They're one of the top 25 teams, beat a top 10 team last week, so you've got a tall order in front of you for the first home one.
Yeah, it's not anything new to us. You know, we've taken on the top teams every year, you know, even from year one when we played a lot of Division I, Division II teams. So it's just kind of in our makeup and what we expect on a week-to-week basis, but it's also who our league is. It just speaks volumes. And I think the one thing that's interesting about our league is there's the teams that are near the top or at the top. St. X wasn't maybe as good last year, but, you know, it's a good program. They reload. They got a few things fixed. I think what I noticed is they have a lot of guys returning that is going to make them even stronger. Marion looked really good on film. They obviously missing a few pieces that they're probably going to get worked out. So, you know, it's a good team, and that's what we expect in this league.
You guys are younger than maybe I would think you would be, meaning at this stage, because which means you've brought in a lot of strong freshman players, and particularly on the offensive line, you've got a lot of young guys there.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting you bring that up because we've talked about that as a staff as well, that even when we played Lion is a third-year program where we're a fourth-year program, but you look at the depth chart and they have a lot more sophomores and juniors on their depth chart than what we have. I think some of that is we had some turnover after that first year, and we're feeling the effects of that a little bit because we had to replace a lot of guys. Every year we keep getting a little bit better recruits in. You know, if you really look at when we had our facility finalized and completed, that was really 2 years ago. We talked about that last year with Isaiah King's class and some of the freshmen we brought in. This is a second year of being able to recruit to that. We had some stability in our staff, so I think we were able to get even better in this year's class. But we're still building, and what you're seeing is some of the talent of younger guys coming in and making an immediate impact, and that's a good thing. But at the same token, we've got to continue to develop them. So there are some growing pains that we're still fighting through.
Speaking of a first-year player for your program, not a freshman, is your quarterback Chayse Brown, and I'm assuming he'll be in the lineup this week. Tell us a little bit about him.
Yeah, Chayse will be our starter this week. He's eligible. That was what we were waiting on against Lion, but he is eligible. I think he's a guy that's going to bring leadership. He's an older guy, even though he's a transfer, but there's still some things he's working through as well because he hasn't played in a real game in a couple of years. You know, he played at the junior college level and saw some time, but not as a starter, and that carries its own little weight. But he puts in a ton of time. He's constantly up there working with Coach Winslow and going through what he needs to do. He puts a lot of time in outside of practice. So again, there'll be some growing pains that we got to work through with him, but I think he'll do a really good job from a leadership standpoint.
And one of the guys we're waiting to break loose is Isaiah King. You mentioned him earlier. Just a dynamic freshman season and didn't, you know, get a lot of balls last week. Talk about what you need to do to get him the football.
Well, we got to create opportunities and figure out what are they giving us. You know, we were talking about that a lot last week and this week, and one thing that I think we've got to do a better job of is the secret is out on Isaiah. The secret is out on the Deontay Cox and some of these guys. So we may not be able to get behind defenses for the big play like we were last year in the same frequency. You know. I think we've got to be a little more patient. If they're going to play off coverage on us, get those guys the ball in space and let them make a guy miss and make it a big play. And then they're going to have to make a decision. That's going to be the dilemma that I think we can put teams in is how are you going to defend it? Are you going to play off? Because if you are, we're going to be able to take advantage of some things underneath. And if they come up and press, then we're going to be able to hit the big play. But we've got to be a little bit more consistent in doing that and getting them the ball. But on the same token, Isaiah, he's out there, and teams are going to definitely prepare for Isaiah. Kalen Petty's not out there to take some of that away, so that's where some of these other weapons have to come in and take some of the pressure off of him.
When I think about the defensive side of the football, you have some very talented and productive linebackers. I mean, you like to mix and match your defensive line a lot, but you've got some really solid linebackers.
Yeah, I think our linebacking core is really taking a step up, obviously, with Coach Bowden's expertise there, and he's done a great job working them and getting them both ready to play from a technique standpoint, but from a mentality standpoint. I think the mentality of a linebacker, you have to be a little bit off. I mean, you've got to be willing to run through a brick wall and go make a play. And it's not like playing on the defensive line or offensive line where that's tough, but you're in a closed space. These guys are running full speed downhill when a running back's running full speed downhill, and you're having high speed collisions. So, Coach Bowden brings that mentality. He understands it, but our linebacking core has really done a good job, and I think we get a little bit better this week because Dontrell Johnson will be back in the lineup as a Sam linebacker. So, with Caleb, the way he's playing, Savage and Dontrell, it makes for a pretty good core.
Let's talk a little bit about St. X. What are they going to do to you offensively and defensively? Talk about your opponent.
St. X, they're very talented. We mentioned that. They're big, they're strong, they're physical. They're what a mid-states football team looks like. They offensively, they've got a transfer quarterback that is really good. He's a really good passing quarterback. I think he threw for 475 yards against Marion and had some big plays. Was player of the week. He throws the ball really well, and he's also very dynamic with his feet. So we've got to make sure we contain him. They like to spread you out. They like to create all different types of route combinations, different types of levels in their passing routes to create mismatches. So offensively, we've got to be able to stop the pass, which is a real different from what we're talking about with Lions. So the onus is going to switch. Our secondary and our linebackers are going to have to play well. Our defensive line is going to have to get pressure when they can, and we'll have to be creative in how we get that pressure on them. But defensively, they're just like teams in our league. They play a lot of quarters. They don't make mistakes. They're very well coached. They're sound in what they do, and they run in hitches. So we've got to answer that physicality. From an offensive line standpoint, we've got to protect and give Chayse time to get the ball in our playmakers' hands.
Final thought here in the fourth year, and you've had one punter all 4 years. Yeah. And the guy has just been spectacular. Talk a little bit about Tyler Hack.
Well, Tyler's been consistent, and really we kind of lucked into him. He came here originally to play men's volleyball with Coach Yaling, and came to us and said he wanted to punt. We took a shot at him and looked at him, and he's been an all-conference punter, was a first-team all-conference guy for us. He's just been consistent, and that's a big thing, and we've talked to him a lot about that, about having that consistency to be able to change field position. There's been years where he has really been the bright spot of us. If we weren't able to get first downs and change field position, he did it for us. So having that consistency, we've got to start looking at what the future looks like, and we've been doing that. But having that consistency in special teams is a big key.
Big game against St. Xavier, the first home game of the season for the Missouri Baptist University Spartans. I'm Harry Schrader. Thanks for joining us. Stay tuned for the kickoff in just a few minutes.